How are you today, sir?
I know.
What? You had a hard old life.
You work for the company, you basically got owned by the company.
Yeah, they owned you, that's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Different, my time in the mines was different. It was, well, I was under a federal government.
Yeah. Did they get paid in script?
What's that?
Did they get paid in script, or was
No.
it actual money?
Yeah, it was actual money, but a lot of it was, they owed it all, so they're paying. You'll see when you go in the company store, they have a pay stub there where all the deductions were out.
Oh, okay.
So it wasn't left much.
Yeah.
By the time they took the rent off you and well, they charge you for kerosene for your lights. See, this here era is in like the 1900s.
Oh, okay.
In the later years, under a different company, you had electricity, and you see, this is back way back.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a single company house, which was pretty much the same layout, but it was only one house, it wasn't a duplex.
Okay.
But this one here, you had a bedroom downstairs, that's where the parents slept. You wanna go through, you can
Yeah.
go to your right, cause you can get into the room, watch your head. This is only opened up for the other, so people can go through. There you go.
No, that's me.
Oh.
Just good.
Yeah, this would have been the kitchen.
Oh, okay.
And the oldest kid or the husband would sleep there to keep the fires going in the winter, keep it warm.
makes sense.
There would have been a washing machine. That's a wooden barrel, and this, you'd pump that to agitate the clothes, and then you'd hand wring it.
Nice.
Yeah. This is the type of skates they used for ice skating, strapped onto your shoes.
Got me brave for that.
Yeah. They had it rough.
They, so no electricity, obviously.
No,
Yeah.
not in this era, but
Right.
the later years,
Right.
then you had the electricity. But this here, when what happened was the company Bosco, back in 1922, they went over and they brought immigrants in. Mostly where I grew up, it was all Ukrainians.
Right.
But they had Italians and everything, and they recruited them to come over and work in the mines. And they told them there's housing there, there's meals, there's food there, everything. But they didn't tell them they had to pay for it all. And then when the miners got here and they got their family settled,
You were stuck.
you're stuck. They owned you. And if you got hurt in the mine and you didn't have a kid old enough, they'd put you out.
Throw you out.
So a lot of times a kid 9 years old went underground, and they were called trapper boys. They'd open and close the door for them to let the pony through. And then, and if a miner died or got killed, if he didn't have a son to go in and take his place, they kicked you. They didn't care. Right? And in 1925, the company cut off the credit. Because you could never pay your bill. You always owed them. So in other words, you were a slave is what it was.
Right.
So in 1925, they cut off the credit off all the miners. So the miners stormed the company store over in the Waterford, burnt it to the ground, to protest, and that's when William Davis was shot and killed. And that's why it's Miners Memorial Day, June 11th.
Oh,
But
okay.
he wasn't in the protest. He was just a bystander.
Right.
But the company police come in on the horses and he got shot. Yeah.
I've heard stories. It was like that in West Virginia up until like the 50s.
Yeah. West Virginia, yeah. Is that where you from the States?
Yeah, from the States. Yeah, I toured a couple mines down there.
Yeah. Well, Cameron Cole is running Donkin Mine.
Oh,
I think they came from West Virginia.
Yeah.
The company. I think, well, the old fella just got killed in a helicopter crash there a couple of years ago, and his son took over. But they're operating. Actually, that mine just shut down last year because of roof problems. But I hear it's reopening again this year. They're going to open again. But Cameron Cole, yeah.
That's right. I've heard about them. Yeah.
And before that, Strata bought it. The Donkin mine the tunnels were driven by DevCo, by the Cape Breton Development Corporation, and they never ever used it. So after the mines closed, the federal government gave the leases to the province, sold the leases to the province.
Yeah.
And then the province sold it to private because they don't want to, government don't want nothing to do with running the mines.
Right.
So well, first Strata bought it, an Australian company, and then they sold it to Cameron Coal.
That's right.
I worked at Donkin Mine for a little while, not underground, but cleaning in the washrooms and that.
Yeah.
So I got to know the manager and everything. Ian Shaw's the manager. But there's a good bunch of guys. The government screwed them around because after Westray tragedy, when all the miners were killed, see, they were under provincial regulations. Our mines were all under federal regulations. So there was a big difference.
Oh, okay.
Provincial is not as stringent. Well, they never had a coal mine under a provincial ring for 100 years.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So we, after the tragedy, I was one of the ones appointed to rewrite the regulations for the province. They still had in the regulation pit ponies for the province. So it doesn't tell you how old they were. So anyway, we rewrote them to modify for Donkin Mine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I'm glad we've come a long way, but still,
it's still dangerous, you know. But you know what? I had a policeman here from Montreal, and he said to me, "I spent 27 years underground," and he said, "I don't know how you can do it. How dangerous it is." I said, "Do you realize what you said?" He said, "Well," I said, "You're a policeman in Montreal." I said, "People, the generation now will shoot you just because you wear the uniform, you know.
Oh, yeah.
They don't care."
Oh, yeah.
And then with the drugs and on the go, if you've got a $20 bill in your pocket, they'd knife you to get it. Yeah, it's crazy the way the world is.
I know.
And like I was telling the story here, I said about the generation. It's sad. I went into Tim Hortons drive-thru, and I asked for 5 large coffee, all the same, triple double. And the young one at the window said to me, "Do you want a tray?" And I said, "What do you want me to?" I said, "No." I said, "Just give me it and I'll juggle it while I'm driving."
You want me to grow another arm?
But you know, that like no common sense. I went in another day and there was a young fella there, and I gave her $5 and I got a cup of coffee, which was $1.55.
Yeah.
And she gave me a $5 bill and change. And I said, "You made a mistake, dear." She looked at the register. She said, "No, that's right." I said, "I gave you $5. She said, "Yeah." I said, "You gave me my coffee, the change, and a $5 bill." So the supervisor come over, and I said, she said, "Is there a problem?" I said, I gave her $5. She gave me the coffee, gave me the change, and gave me a $5 bill. I said, "She made a mistake." The supervisor looked at the register and she said, "No, that's right." I said, "Thank you very much. Have a good day." Like, if that register said give them $1,000, they'll give you it because they can't add. One day there was a young fella, and he said the registers stopped working. I said, "Well, it's $1.50 for the coffee.
Right.
I gave you a $5 bill."
Yeah.
"Yeah, but I don't know how much to give you back." I said, "Do you know math? Adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, like that's what we learned at school." Couldn't make change. Like, it's sad, and that's the generation that's going to be running the country.
Yeah, I know and that's the ones who want to work. The
Yeah.
other ones that don't even want to work.
Mm-hmm.
Don't even want to show up.
No. Well, I had them in the underground. We hire new guys, and they wanted to get paid to show up. If you want me to work, you got to give me more money. That's the way they were raised. And you know what? A lot of it is our problem because we spoil the kids so bad growing up. You know, giving them everything they want when they wanted it, and they don't know the value of anything
Yeah,
else.
it's a lot of mentality.
Yeah. But it's really, really scary when you see what's going to be taken over. Like when we're gone. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, it's even to get aides that worked out of my house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just you have to call 10 people and well, I don't want to come out. I don't want to.
Yeah.
It's like, well, I mean, it's their profession.
Yeah. They don't want to. They don't want to work. They want to. I don't know. It's crazy, but what do you do? Who do you think is going to get president?
United States. I would think Trump, but I don't know how these lefties vote, so I don't know.
I would bet money Trump is going to be.
I would bet, but man, they'll throw in some tricks. I mean,
Yeah.
that they'll play the games, and I just don't. There's so many states that vote so far to the left, so who knows, but I mean, all Trump has to do is win, like probably 1 or 2 states he didn't win in 2020, and he will get in.
Yeah. I honestly think he's getting back in.
Yeah,
What is Trump, a Republican or?
yeah, Republican.
See, I don't understand. I guess that's like we have conservatives and liberals, so Republican and Democrats.
Yeah, but what I understand is like it's the opposite. Like I don't understand. Like what's Trudeau? Is Trudeau
A liberal.
Liberal? Okay, so yeah, it's probably the same. Same.
Oh Jesus, he's gone. He's not getting back.
Yeah.
We are the only country in the.
I should move off in a bit. We just make a semicircle, starting over there around. Yeah. That's right. That's Russ. The boys were taking up some old point that they found down there and to get it out of the way. Come on in, straighten around. Last minute, close the door, please. I got a camera. 2 cameras. I'm trying to say phone. Yeah, I always give everybody got their cameras. I meant to say phone. Use the phone cameras. I can't use the technology. Anyway, here we are at the top of the Ocean Deep Car. What was opened in 1967? Well, it really started in 1965, halfway through in 66, to develop this mine for the museum here. It is a coal mine. The coal has been removed and it's ready. It could be ready to go for raw material work if it was needed in the old-fashioned way. But it's here for us to examine. Now here, as I mentioned before, the hoisting engine on the surface with the drums up there with the wire strand steel rope wrapped around it. The man up there operating that is called a hoisting engineer. In that building, there are no windows, just one door. In the front of it, of course, an opening for the rope to come through. And as the rope is down here with a big shackle connected to it, and the two pinholes that hold it for the pins to connect the boxes. He's up there, can't see anything, can't see a thing outside the doors. So out here, you would have a man called a chain runner, an old job monitor from way back when the boxes of coal were chained with a couple links of chain that grabbed like the voice to the rope. And the rope was in endless hollies within the mine and come out. And men would run along that as it came to the surface and release that voice, the voice, or pull the pin and go on its way. So they were called chain runners. Job long gone, but they kept the job name. He was really in charge of all transportation that went in and out of the mine. And how they communicated was by a system of bells. We called them raps. We didn't call them bells. We called them raps. R-A-P-S. And the code of signals is right here on the wall there for you. How they communicate was the hoisting engineer had a bell, a huge big bell, right by his ear, up there in the hoisting engine, sitting in his little stool. At them days, I saw pictures of it, sitting in the stool. There's a picture of it here, I think somebody's outside, but get it back in here. So, the chain runner's out here, running the full length of the mine, suspended from it'd be a rope or a cord, running the full length of the mine, and it was draped over pulleys. And on top of the pulleys were tied to the rope, to the roof, just hanging down, and the rope suspended or going down. So every now and then there'd be a box, like electrical junction box, and in that box was a little metal pin and a spring. So when the chain runner pulled on the cord, the pin come back and made a connection, and it rang a bell. That's how they communicated. And what we have is a bell here. Now, if anybody has annoyed just like me, I'm going to ring this bell. I hope she don't stick. We got an engineer, an electrician that I love teaching. Because I'm a mechanic. Mechanics, electricians are 2 north ends of a magnet. We just don't seem to catch on the job. So we're going to go down, okay? Here we go. That's what he would hear. Release his brakes, let his handles go, and down we go. That little box now, there's no brakes on that. You gotta remember that. So if that rope breaks behind us, And it did here in Cape Breton in 1938. There was 22 men, I think, lost their lives on that. The rope broke behind them 1,000 feet back, and down they went. And they jumped out, and from their injuries, some stayed with it. But if the ropes we're going to stop them, and then of course the other one, there's your say was right there, and that's what we used right up to a more modern version of it. But he still had this bell up until 1999-2000, the hoisting engine on the surface in the coal mines here. Yeah, that's what it communicated. Yeah, foolproof. Yeah, foolproof. This box here came from England, GMT, General Mining Terrain, there's brakes on it. Hydraulically, there's a hydraulic system on there with a little tank, a little reservoir of oil, and a little pump. And with the hoses going to each wheel, and on the four wheels is a huge spring. And on that spring is a piston, and onto the piston below the spring is an abrasive pad. So you pump up the oil goes through the hoses, pushes up against the spring. It can't come back. There's a little one-way valve, a check valve there, keeping the oil from running back. If the rope or this box, as we say, went on the run and took out but left by itself, just for the sake of mechanics of it, we'll just simplify it. Within one of the wheels, there's a little wheel. Centrifugal force, and it made a certain RPM, revolutions per minute. That little wheel in there would pop. And when it popped out, it would dump the oil, and the oil would go back to the tank, and that put the springs down, the pads, the rail would stop. That was the theory of it. Wow. What an innovation for us to have. I like that word. But it was everything. First time I ever slept coming into mine. Sometimes you're tired or whatever, but I always kept myself on alert. I know wooden boxes, but these here, I would have a little, just put my chin down on my chest and let myself go. Okay, let's make our way down into the mine when you're ready. We'll watch this here. All right, here we go. There you are. You come with me. I'll go by. Oh, I don't know. I'm nervous on your first shift. You're all nervous on your first shift, hey, huh? What in the name of God have I got myself into? Huh? Where am I going? Well, I think it was the money at the end of the day to return from the car I wanted to buy. That's before my champagne got rolled in here. We ended up with a second-hand Dodge. A couple years behind, we're going to get first up by a fire car. Rock on Charlene. Let me out the window. She became treasurer. Okay, let's get on either side here. Everybody okay? All right, come on down with me here then. Get on either side here. Where's my girl? Where's she at? Huh? Yeah, come on down there. Everybody a chance to see that. I know why you're looking over each other. You want to come down here with me? You okay up there?
Yep.
All right. All right then. On either side of you, you're now in the coal. 400 million years old. That's when she started being created. Right here, and this is the harbor seam. On either side of you, got your lights, you got your camera, your phones, you can put your flashlights on and have a look at her. But this here is the harbor seam, outcrops from the ocean. There are millions of square miles of this coal on we call it a plate, on a pattern. Millions, yeah, on either side of you. It's on either side of you. And there's millions of square miles of this coal all along the coast of Cape Breton. Geologists say it goes right to Newfoundland. We can only get down maybe a mile from the ocean floor down, and then some, and after that, the pressure's that great we can't mine it. But this coal here is metallurgical coal. First of all, it's be classified as bituminous B, and then along with that, it's metallurgical. What they would do with this coal was take it, put it in a huge big industrial oven, remove the oxygen, bake it at 1500 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, and the resulting product was called coke, C-O-K-E. The Dominion Coal Company way back then, and even Dasco owned the iron ore mines down in Newfoundland, and even had their own steamship company called, what was it called? The Black Ball? Yeah, and they would they would steam up their own iron ore to here. Cape Breton's full of limestone. The quarries are long closed now, but they were here. So with the secret ingredients, I guess we're not allowed to know about, they made the finest steel in the world for years and years and years. And this is the coal that they use, this harbor seam. Millions of tons of this coal has been mined. One coal mine, 12 Cowrie, in the famous mining town in Waterford, about 10 miles westerly here, in his lifetime took out 42 million tons. 26 Cowrie, I think, was in the 30s. 30s of millions of tons of this coal. And there's millions of tons of it left. There's a 750 million square block over easterly here, in a place called Donkin, that's where I lived. And the American fellow, Mr. Klein, has it. It's on hold right now, but he has potential to go in there for 750 million tons. But you know where that's going, the market's gone, and the way this world is turning, nobody wants coal. But here we are, this is it right here. Okay. Great. Alright, we're going to make a turn. We're going to make a turn to the west. We're going to make a left. Watch this beam right here, okay? There's a beam right here. Very careful, we'll pass that. Okay, look, there's a pin on one side, pin on the other. You can't be here. Look out. Every coal mine must have a ventilation system. That means if you're providing fresh air to be pumped into the mine by a huge fan on the surface, down in here, into the coal mine, and it can't go willy-nilly, it must go on, the airflow and ventilation must go on a disciplined path, or circuit. To make that happen, the design and the engineers, I guess the mining engineers, would design the plan, and they put up these here barricades. This here, way back in the 1920s, would be called a track. They were solid, but this one here has a door we can go through. In my day, we just call them stoppings. It stopped the air. Well, imagine now up the surface, there's a huge big fan pumping the air down into the mine. It comes down here. Where we're at is number 2 entry. Right above us, where we'll exit the mine, is number 1 entry. And below us, parallel 50 feet down, notice that 50 feet? Because there's 50 feet square blocks of coal, the pillars, is down below us. And number 3 entry is going in parallel to us here. So the air is pumped into the mine, it comes to this door, it can't go any farther, it's restricted. It then is forced to go down to number 3 entryway in, and on the other side of this door is a worked out room. And they've now used it for an airway, and the air flows up and through that and makes part of the ventilation circuit. It does 3 things, or a number of things I should say. Ventilation. 1, it brings fresh air down here for the miners to breathe. And back then, them Roman pillar mines, it wasn't very efficient. And number 2, it's supposed to clear away all the impurities that's in the air from the coal mining process, where they're blasting using blasting powder and they're blasting down the coal. You got the coal dust, you got the smell of the cordite, and you got all the impurities in the air going on with it. And also, methane gas. When that coal was being formed 400 million years ago by rotting vegetation forming a fossil fuel called coal, a gas was being formed in that, and it was CH4, methane, from that rotting vegetation. And as the soil and the earthworks gathered and piled up on top of that vegetation, that gas was trapped. So as the coal over 400 million years was formed after the pressing down, the moisture being removed, and you had the final creation of the coal, little bubbles and methane gases in there to varying degrees. Very important for coal miner to know, because a certain percentages in this atmosphere, 20.8 oxygen, which we're in right now, if ignited, it would burn. And at higher percentages, if ignited, it would explode. So a coal miner has to know, a professional coal miner has to know what methane gas is and how to deal with it and get rid of it, or he's kaboom. So that's why the ventilation system would be so important. If it was short circuited, someone left these doors open, or there was a fall of stone come down and choke the place off, inside that methane gas would start to gather, and we'll talk about it later on. But right now, there will be two little railroads here. One on the high side and one on the low side, as I call it. Narrow gauge, all about a meter in width, or 36 inches. One road is for the full box of coal to go out, and the other road is for the empty boxes to be delivered into the coal faces for the coal miners to shovel and fill up with the coal. Now, it was delivered here by a horse. The horse in his harness, hooked up, and on the back of the harness we call it a single tree. And on the single tree was a pin, big steel pin, and he pinned it to the box. And the employee there would be a teenage boy. That'd be the driver. And he would take that full box of coal up to here, disconnect himself from the full boxes, pin up to the empty boxes, and in he'd go. To make that job more efficient and flow, they had an employee here to open and close the door behind him, the horse, and the box. And that employee would be his first job here at the Cape Breton coal mine. And sometimes there would be a boy, a young man as young as 10 years of age. What in the name of God is a 10-year-old boy doing in a Cape Breton coal mine? Well, that coal company, as I talked about with their wages, and they didn't care about you, they didn't care about me. There was plenty of us, and they're just waiting to jump in and get that job. So we're here from our native country, from where we're from. We come here in Cape Breton to mine the coal in Glace Bay. They put us in a company house with our family. The father goes to work, and if he gets injured or worse, he had to pay, and he can't work. He has to pay rent to that coal company to live in that house. And if he can't pay rent, they had like a security, a boom squad, company cops they call them, that would come along and take you and your meager possessions, throw them out on the street, and put another family in. So if the father was injured or worse, the mother would probably send, to keep the family together, would send out her oldest boy, as young as 10 years of age, to work in the coal mines. And that's how he landed here, up until 1925. So what do we got here now? Let me see, where are they at? Yep. You? Yes? Any other fellas here 10, 12 years old? Where are you at? They're hiding on me.
They're right here.
Come here.
It's gonna put you to work.
Come here, you two. Yes. You want to come up here? Come on. Yeah, right up here. There you go. Come on. Right here. Come on up here. I got this one little way. You're going up.
Let's go.
Turn and face this way. Face it. Face it. Right. How old are you? Not back then.
Thought I'd ask.
You're a coal miner's wife. You hardly sleep. You never had a hot meal. The last hot meal was your wedding day.
Really?
You're cooking, you're cleaning, you're washing clothes, and you're looking after the house. And in the wintertime, the fires. You don't go too far. All right, either that, and you're the homemaker.
But the company would never hire a female to do the job.
No, unheard of back then. Unheard of. Today, she's wide open.
Yay.
Okay, come on, follow me in here. That hose got come in there. Come on in. Oh, you'll be. Well, she got it on the phone. hoisting. Right, now last minute close the door, please, have a ventilation. Thank you. Right here, I stop here momentarily, just to show you that this would be a room. Now, two coal miners came here. They would start right here as they did. There'd be a full block of coal, measure off their 12 feet, I guess it is, and then start down. And remove the coal, and as they went, there'd be a railroad here with a little turn in it, and a switch, to switch the rails. And they're working their way down. Now, as they were working their way down, excuse me, the driver, the teenage driver with the horse, has to get them an empty box. He makes the turn, he heads down, he puts steel rods in the spokes of the wheels, so that if the horse trips, the box won't run over. He's got more of a chance to slide it down like a sleigh. When they get it down there, the two miners, as far down as they're working their way down, they have to secure it to take that box from the horse, remove the single tree, take the horse and the harness and go. And now they got that box and they got to secure it to the roof. You probably use a big timber, and then slide it down on an angle like that and prop the box on it. And then they got to try and get their coal in. They had some challenges. Up here, the men that had places like this up here were preferred men. Everything's on a level, and down here they're going downhill. And the other miners, same guys, the opposite, going uphill. They had to get their box up to them, and then try to secure that box so they get the coal into it, so it wouldn't run, what we call run away. It wouldn't break free and run down the slopes. See, out our coal mines, and I think I said it briefly, when it was being formed, all our coal ended up being going on the slant. Originally, they're all on the level, huge tropical swamp. But as the earth separated and divided, your mountain ranges and whatever the geology of it, air coal sometimes 17 to 20 degrees off the level, and going down like this. So miners, they had their challenges. It was a trade, and you'll see in a memorial book, way back in those days, killed by a runaway trip or runaway box. And that's just what you're looking at. Say they were working up here instead of going down and coming up, and their box broke away. Anybody down there with a very dim, poorly lit lamp, and sometimes they wouldn't hear it. Bang. So it was quite common, one of those actions.
Can you shine the light down there? Yeah, I missed it because I was kind of a little bit out. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
That mess right there is a strum hose that we had for pumping up water here. Way back when we had some water issues in the winter. When the place was closed down, she was only inspected once a week, and the pump broke down. So this here has got to be taken to the surface. It was left here. So that's got to be addressed. And that's your airway, by the way. Like I'm saying, you're on the inside of the doors. The air is going. That's number 3 entry down there, and the air is now coming up here and make its way inside to make that ventilation circuit. Okay, let's go and see Brick. Let's go and see Fred and Laura. They're a quiet bunch. Are you saying, ah?
Yeah.
Are you singing to yourself, dear God, what am I doing here? That's what I said my first day of work. What have I done? There's something dragged one day here. What have I done? This is the most congested part of the tour right here. What's the rail? What's that rail? Now he tells me. Now he tells me. Yeah, her had down around your ankles. This is the most congested part of the tour right here. Trying to what we do about it. Right here, we're to you right here, the box of coal. This is a 1 ton box. Here you have your the size of a horse or a pony that would be used in the mine. That you would use in the size of a horse or pony that would be used in the mine at this height of coal. From the 1800s, when they first became, they really started to get the coal into the mines in a productive manner, heavy production, they used horses, and this is where they used them. And when the company, get this word now, purchased these horses, company property, you and I are hired, these horses, when they came underground here, they never saw the surface for their whole working life. Yep, they had, but on the other hand, they were tired, they had 10-hour shifts, there were water troughs out along here, as far as you went in, there'd be a water trough here for them, filled with fresh water that was taken down from the surface in a box with a big tank on it. And at the end of their day, they were taken up to a stable, way back from the working places. The company said there'd be no drafts to blow onto them and no water to drip onto them. You had a group of men, a head stable man, like the boys, that would look after them at the end of the shift. During the day, they got rations. You couldn't work these horses in a 10-hour shift, going back and forth here, supplying them, doing what they're doing, without some kind of nourishment. They couldn't, so they weren't fed through the day. But their main ration at night time was hay, oats, and bran. Now, we're underground in this kind of environment here, and any horse people here, you know what mold or what hay can do to a horse. So that was strictly regulated as to their feed. When it came down, it was the very best. And it was regulated on how it would be fed to them. If moldy or wet, they would have to discard it, that sort of thing. But, yeah, there were 10-hour days here. The driver here would be a boy, let's say he's about 16. He's actually coming up being a trapper boy. He's old enough now that he's a driver. So he's delivering these boxes, empty boxes, into these men, these coal miners that are making a living putting coal in those boxes. So they want those boxes yesterday. And they'll stand for no excuse why that empty is not there. So that young feller's on the hop. He's on the move, and along with this horse. Out he goes to get with the full boxes, and he's coming in with the empties. 10 hours a day. So let's say around Thursday, 6 days a week too. 6 days a week. And he would come in here, and I would say, the way they have it designed here, that driver, around Thursday, he'd be pretty tired. So what they did was, rather than sit on the box like you see somebody on the surface on a horse and wagon sitting on the seat, they would lay down in the coal on their belly, so that they would have headroom, and they would make sure that because they would fall asleep. And if they fell asleep, that was the end of it. They would get seriously injured or a lot worse than that. And there's up in the memorial book there's names in there that with the horse fell under the box, crushed by a box, all this sort of thing. 1940s, late 1940s, the Cape Breton coal miner got a contractual union contract. The first one for they got vacations, recognized vacations, paid vacations, and these horses didn't come into the line. Some of them were blind. Well, of them were blinded down here, and the others they would take them up at night. So that when the daybreak came, it'd be a nice, slow, gentle daylight come on, and it wouldn't be a shock. Take them up in the daylight with a bag over their head and put the bag on. All right then. Watch this beam here, right above it. There's a beam there, and there's a beam up above. Second last part of the car is up here. Yeah, that's my case. Anybody that needs a seat? Anybody that has discomfort? Please have a seat. Oh yeah. Watch your anybody else look for it? You can stand. I told them to put 2 benches down here for Cousin Eric. One of them. You want to sit on here, one? You're going to be in agony. How about you, buddy? You go ahead there. All right. All right, let's try and roam around as we get everybody in. More benches coming down here, I think. Sorry for your troubles. I'll be the next. Can everybody see? Can anybody see who wants to see? Here we are in the place. You guys all right back there? Okay, come on up and in. Right here is an actual working face in the Roman pillar mine. Now this discoloration here, we're close to the surface. You know, it's iron oxide, copper spotter. A lot of Cape Breton wells have this in it. By golly, my grandfather did. Not to this extent, but over time, everything in the house was orange. The toilet bowl, the sink, yes, the cups, the saucers, the plates, everything was orange. But anyway, here's the face, working face where 2 Cape Breton coal miners would come to work in a room and pillar. Now what you have is, the system that they used was called cut, shoot, and load. And the thing, what they had to use here was this machine called radial arm cutting machine. Ingersoll Rand, way back in the 1800s, 1890s. That's right. Ingersoll Rand, yeah. It comes in two parts. The column here for the roof to the floor, anchored by acme thread. I call it acme thread, the square thread. Put your big rod, steel rod in there, and tighten that up as tight as you can get it because vibrations. The other part here, oh, sorry, let me get it. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, sir. And the other part here is the working business end of it. There's a little pneumatic motor in here. And out on the end you have a chuck. And on the end of that chuck, the chuck holds a steel rod. And on the end of the steel rod is 3 cutting picks, about 8 inches long, sharpened to a point and sharpened on the edges. And they would come in, there's 2 handles of operation. One handle, I got a new light and I'm not used to it. I missed my old lamp. There's 2 handles of operation, one here and one here. Something like tapping your head and rubbing your belly, as they go the opposite way. So they would take it and they would turn it on. I'm not turning this on because the desk is just, I'm deaf enough and it's too loud. We don't have ear protection. But it makes it sound like punch cut, punch cut, punch cut. And it's that loud, we don't hear each other. But when we're working together that long, we know what our next move is. So what they did was, in that system, cut, shoot, and load, they would go up about 2 feet or 2.5, 3 feet to the bottom, and they would bore in, and they had about 4 steels, like I call them steels, the steel rods that you connect the cut picks on. 3-footer, maybe a 4-footer, then a 5 foot and a 6 foot. And they would exchange them out till they got into 6 feet. That's the depth that they wanted to go. 3 feet to the bottom, and then 6 feet, maybe a 2-foot cut, a width. So they cut the place out. One miner is here on the handles, cutting. The other miner has a flat shovel, flat pan spade shovel. It's called a duffing shovel. Now, coal fines, fine powdery coal, is called duff, D-U-F-F. So he's there taking the duff out from the filings, and when they finish cutting this out, that's the cutting part, dismantle his machine as best they could, drag it out there to a place of safety, come in here and put their air hose and hook up to their boring hammer. With their boring hammer, they would then cut a series of holes. They knew the pattern. They would have a pattern and bore holes in 6 feet on top and in the bottom. And way back then, in 1925, I'm sticking with, they did have blasting powder. They had plugs, sticks of powder. Electric blasting caps, but they weren't, I'll tell you, and I know this, they weren't reliable. They were inferior, those blasting caps. My great grandfather, my father's great Reed, John N. Reed, my great grandfather was killed in the place here in number 6 mine, in Dominion number 6 mine. They fired the shot. They said, and he come in, and they had a misfire. She didn't go off, and he walked into it. I guess he put his shovel into it. That was, and talk about vacations. It was on Boxing Day, 1923. They had Christmas Day, I guess, and that was it. Back to work. But that was the dangers. That was the dangers. That's first the story for me. So these fellas here cut, shoot, and load. They would then come in and they fill those holes. They put the blasting powder, the stick, and they put the blasting cap into the stick of powder. The wires would be hanging out, and they would push that in with a wooden rod, way back in the hole, and they had a big bucket of clay. We call it stemming. And they just packed the hole up with that stemming, the rest of the hole. Wires are hanging out. Wire up his wires together. Now I'm going like it's in series. I think way back then they had to shoot one hole at a time. You know that didn't happen because you're not going to make if the authorities wasn't here, they shot multiple shots. They just didn't have delay caps, as they call it. How they got around that part, I got to find out more about it. But they would shoot it down, cut and shoot. Now, because they undercut here, I'll explain that. Because they undercut in the full width of the place, then 6 feet. When they shot the coal down, and I mean by igniting the powder exploding and expanding, the coal expanding and breaking up, rather than blow out all over the place, because they undercut the path of least resistance. The coal would just from the bottom break up and just lay there. And the top would just break up and drop. Now the reason they did that, so that it'd be right here to load out. If they did, it'd be all over the place. They'd never get it. They'd never get it a day's pay like that. So here, okay, cut, shoot, and load. We shot her down, and we walk in. We're coming through the corridor, the coal dust and the smell. We can hardly see each other. The little lamps that we got, we're just coming through like a pea soup fog. When we come in here, we check our roof. We scale the loose stone down. We put up our timbers that we bought from the company. One straight up like this here, and then one going across, and the other timber there. Probably put up 2 sets of them. And then we call cat pieces. Get little pieces of wood and wedges, and wedge the roof to keep her tight. Are we ready? No, sure we're not. Then we come in, and we would look for a misfire. We got that done. Now, outside here, delivered to us on flat trams by that chain runner, and then the young boy, when he was doing material, would be a pile of road rails. They're 20 feet long, and they're 30 pounds. That means every 3 feet they weigh 30 pounds. So we get them in here, we put on our road, we use as few sleepers or cross ties as we possibly can. Because we're not road makers. We want that box here, just those rails, just to hold that box up so we can roll it in. Get it as close to coal as we can. The bigger pieces we would pick up by hand and put it in the box. And the smaller pieces we would use a shovel. This shovel's too big for this place. It's called a pan shovel. They would use this on a long wall. They would use a smaller shovel here, but this is what we got just to show you that, but some of the size of the shovels that they use. Look at that. That's got to be the ugliest thing in the world. You imagine 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, knowing that's your tool? I can't get over it. We would load 16 tons, and what do you get? Another day older and deeper in debt. Well, you imagine anybody here that would load 16 tons every day, everything would have to go properly, flow, nothing could go wrong. Who has a day like that? What they did was, I figured about 11 boxes. There were men that loaded 16 tons, and that, or it may be it, but I saw them in their later life. They're broken men. Stomach hernias, knees gone, can't breathe, their backs stooped over, but that's the way they were. But I figured the regular average guy here, he got around, him and his buddy got 11 boxes a day. Cycle. Methane gas, here's the last part. We would come in here at the start of a shift, and there'd be a chalk mark. In my day, there'd be a chalk mark somewhere on the timber with the examiner's initials onto it. He would come in and test for gas and examine the place, put his initials that he was here, and leave. If he found something wrong, he would barricade the place off. Way back when, they used canaries. Now a canary, for checking methane gas. Methane gas, chemical name for methane gas is CH4. Specific gravity is 0.55. What's all that about? Well, it's lighter than air. It's lighter than air. We're in a confined space. So if the ventilation system is disrupted, that methane gas got no other place to go but up here to the roof. And that's where we'll find it. So you start down here with the canary. And why do they use the canary? Well, for the simple reason that his lungs are sensitive to the methane. We're not. Methane is colorless, odorless, tasteless, and non-poison. Flammable and explosive. Those are the properties we're interested in. But you put the canary down here, and I don't care if you're using the most modern, up-to-date methane gas detection equipment that was made in 2024 or back in the 1800s where we used a canary. The method's the same. Start down here where there's no methane at all. Start as low as you can, and then come up with the canary, very slowly. Tweety, tweet, tweet, tweet. You go tweety, tweet, 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 tweet. Tweety, tweet, tweety, tweet. And I say right about here. If there's any methane gas, it'd be right about there, in this place. And he would fall over, and he'd be so sensitive against his lungs, he would knock out. We're not knocked out because it's not poisonous to us. And the same, but that's what he was canary, he was sensitive to his lungs. Now, we found out here that there's no methane, so within tolerable limits, and we start working. In my day, if we were in a position and we detected 1.25% methane in this atmosphere here, we shut everything down. That's a safety factor. At 2%, we evacuated. The textbook for the exam that I took, that I wrote, says methane gas between 3 and 5% in an atmosphere of 20.8% oxygen, which we're in, if ignited, will burn. Prettiest blue you ever saw in your life. Pockets of it on the wall face, it was a spark. And it went woo, 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 and then it went out. Some of the guys on the coal cutting machine had the fire extinguisher and the fire hose. I was a mechanic working on the roof supports, and when they were trying to get the fire equipment to go up to work, I was with my rear end up facing out, and I said the Lord's Prayer as fast as you could say hum. Yeah, but anyway, because nothing I could do. There was nothing, just protect myself because I was too far away from the equipment. Between 5 and 15% methane gas, if ignited, will explode. Now, we're pretty wet here in the summertime, just the opposite in winter. This place is powder dry. We had explosion here. All right then. See if I push my chair a touch. That other guy's got to lose weight, but this thing's dipping down. Well, they're all sorry garden here. When they were designing the museum here in 1965-66, getting the head start, there was a lady by the name of Mrs. Nina Cohn. She was a community volunteer and everything. I mean everything. And she realized even then, before the coal company announcement of the closures, that we would lose, the coal mines will be closed eventually. You just can't mine anymore. And with that, she had a vision of keeping our culture and our way of life alive through a museum and telling our stories and collecting our way of life. And because I've seen a generation grow up here that for heat, all they have is a dial on the wall. You either turn it up or turn it down, or they have no idea of what a coal stove is, how to start a coal stove fire, how to maintain it, and do the maintenance on it. And that means taking the ashes in. Have no concept of that whatsoever. I grew up with that. I grew up in that culture. So that's the kind of thing that Mrs. Nina Cohn was trying to, for future generations. And here we are. So when she was, they did a lot of things to get money, and of course they did. And from all their hard work, here's our museum, the museum grounds, and their underground tower. So by 1966, all those old coal miners that did this work, they're about 67, 68, 70 years old. Relatively good shape, and she got them, the ones that did this work, and as consultants. And they consulted her as to what should be underground here for in those working days, 1920s. And sure enough, you experienced it all. It's when you come around. And when the meetings were coming, they said, no, listen to Mrs. Cohn. In 1B Colliery in the 1930s, I guess, or late 20s, there was a miner there by the name of William Krause, and he worked at the bottom of the shaft. Him and his fellow workers. And what they did was, their job was the full box of coal would come out to hoist it to the surface. They would pull the pins of all those boxes. The other, when the empties come down, pin them together. We call it make a trip. Maybe 45 or 60 boxes, 3-ton boxes, my day, to go in to be loaded. So that was his job description, part of it. And where he worked, I seen pictures. I was up in outside on one of the pictures outside, but he had a garden underground. This William Krause. Now I worked in that colliery for 12 years, and I walked by in that alleyway where that garden was, and didn't know it was there. It was long gone, of course. But I did not know it was there, and I recognized it from some of the pictures. It's just, you know, it's like one of those, what do you call it, ha-ha moment or something, you know, buff, blink. My God, that's it. But he didn't have those fluorescent lights. When I saw the picture, it was a black, the black and white, of course, and it was going along an alleyway, something like in here, like along here, and little boxes for his planters, so you could plant, what you call it, planter boxes, and with his topsoil, all the manure from the horses you could imagine, and he planted his garden, flower garden. Now we're getting kind of wilted here, as you can see. We got to refresh them up. We use artificial flowers here, but somebody got the bright idea, the good idea, and brought down a whole big box of donated to real flowers. But we don't have the atmosphere here to maintain them. Where that was, I remember it was warm and kind of humid, and I see in the picture of his garden, it was lush. He had ferns and flowers growing. And she was, Mrs. Cohen was excited about that, this winning cruise. Because, I see the picture, so I guess a local newspaper put down the story onto it, and then a magazine